Hey there everyone, Paul from OPEX Fitness Bristol here, and in today's coaches conversation we will discuss our number one secret to getting you great results in everything that you do. Whether it's fitness, business, family or just life in general, we discover the main ways to keep you successful for the long term. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to slap a like on it, click the subscribe button and make sure you check out all the details in the description box below.
Okay, here we are going. Welcome everyone. We're back to another coaches conversation. Very interesting topic this week. The title of this this little video is the secret of getting great results in everything. And that's kind of like a very broad topic, but I think we're all in agreement as to kind of what that secret actually is. And I think what we'll talk about first, we've kind of talked about this outside of this discussion, is that the secret to getting great results is having just being accountable to someone or something. And we're going to discuss what that actually is, what that means, and how that differs from different people and their different experiences. And I know from a personal experience, whether it's work, whether it's gym work, whether it is training, or whatever I want to achieve or get done, it's always more productive if I've got somebody, on my shoulder, kind of guiding me and keeping me real, basically, so I don't get lazy and don't get slack. So this conversation can be applied to all aspects of your life, and some of the tips and tools that we come up with at the end will hopefully guide you to keep you accountable, but allow you ultimately to get great results in whatever pursuits that you have, whether that's physical, mental, or within your work life or family life even. So let's start off with, what does accountability mean? That's a kind of a long word, and it's one of those words that gets chucked out by all those wellness coaches these days. What is accountability and why is it so important? Guys, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, well, for me, accountability is about kind of being responsible for your actions and then kind of having that obligation to report it. And I guess in some ways, in other words, accountability keeps you consistent. And I think without that consistency, you can't progress. So, why is accountability important? Because accountability keeps you consistent, and then consistency allows you to progress.
Yeah, I think we see with a lot of our clients that come to us and they talk about the goals that they want to achieve, or whether that's a fitness goal or whatever it could be, is trying to hone in on that particular goal and then plan out those small steps to progress towards that goal. And that's one of the key things with goal setting. Again, it's one of those fashionable things that people talk about these days, but we got to make sure that those goals are relatively achievable, but it's our job as coaches to break those goals down and actually, be that kind of person on the shoulder. So have you got an example there, Milo, like that you could talk about in your own life that you can apply to this?
Yeah, I can talk about, personally, like how do I keep myself accountable? And for me, it's kind of, I go back to a stage where maybe my diet wasn't as good, and maybe I wasn't exercising as consistently as I was. And I don't want to go back to feeling like I did, back that time. So that goal and that drive and that reason for me doing it keeps me accountable. That coupled with me obviously planning my own workouts in advance, because if I go into a day and I haven't planned a workout, I'm probably less likely to do it because there's not a plan in place. But yeah, I don't know, Andy, have you got a way that you've kept yourself accountable?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting topic, isn't it? It's kind of twofold. I mean, there's accountability and taking responsibility, and you have these things that they really do kind of go together. I have found for me, what often happens is if I tell people what my goals are, you know. And then we always encourage people, you know, tell people close to you, you know, what your goals are, what you're going to achieve. That simple act in and of itself will provide some accountability, because you can then, you know, because those people are going to say, hey, how, you know, how's it going? How, you know, are you making progress towards that goal? And I think that there's doing something like that to keep you accountable. But then if you do that over time, I actually find that kind of ends up turning into taking responsibility, right? So it kind of turns into, you know, being accountable to somebody. And if you do that long enough and stick to it, kind of almost turns into a habit that becomes you taking responsibility for what's happening. You know, you become so tied into that goal that, you know, as we've kind of spoken about before, the pain and discomfort of not doing that thing is greater than actually doing the thing, right? So for you, Milo, it was the pain of you going back to training inconsistently and not eating the way you did. That pain is greater than it is for you to actually do that thing. And I think accountability can start you down that path and then kind of help mold that habit into taking responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah, and I think where you're talking about the difference between being accountable to yourself and being accountable to somebody else. Because I think being accountable to yourself, it takes a special kind of person. And
Yes.
there's very few people like that in the world that can be. Because, you know, let's face it, who is motivated to eat healthy and to exercise consistently all the time? You know, we can always give ourselves excuses about not to do it. Because if you're only accountable to yourself, you can always go, I'll do it tomorrow. And we can also, and then we use that as like a respite to kind of, I guess, justify our actions. I've got that little moment of relief where everything's okay again. But I think what we're kind of, by committing to doing something tomorrow and then always tomorrow, life doesn't have a pause button. So what you're doing there is not giving yourself accountability, and it's actually a form of probably self-sabotage. But it's sort of in a little package, so you don't feel it's that way, if that makes sense.
I think that's actually a really good point. I'm going to adjust what I said earlier. I think, you know, one can turn into the other, but you do need both, because I think the strongest willed people I know, you know, everybody has days where they're not motivated, or, you know, they don't take responsibility for their own stuff. It is not possible to take responsibility of your own actions when it comes to things like fitness and eating healthy all the time. You are going to slip. It's going to happen. As human beings, we've evolved and we are designed to take the path of least resistance. We are built that way. It's in our DNA. So I think, you know, even the strongest willed people that do take responsibility for their actions, even they need somebody sometimes to be accountable. So I think one can help the other, but at the same time, I think you need both. I really do. Whether that's friends, a training partner, a coach is a great one. I think that's a really important thing.
I think what's hit home with me for what you've kind of explored there, Andy, is that responsibility, and that it's your kind of self-regulation. Can you sometimes, you need to be accountable to other people, but if you can become self-reliant and be able to plan out, you know, your path to your particular goals, whatever it is, you know, because that is the ultimate for us as coaches with our clients, is to make them self-motivated and self-reliant. We don't want them to need us for 25 years. Okay. Even though, you know, they're paying us money, ultimately, you know, if we can make them self-reliant or help them become self-reliant or self-motivated, that kind of evolves them as a human being. And I think that self-responsibility, you know, you coming from a military background, if you don't have that self-responsibility, especially out in the field, out on exercise or out, you know, on operations, and you don't clean your weapon properly, or you don't, you know, pack your food properly or something like that because you got lazy, that could mean, you know, somebody loses their life. And it's the same with me in the fire service. You know, you become self-reliant. Yeah, you're part of a team, but if you do not do your bit, and become self-responsible, then potentially bad things can happen.
Yeah.
And from a training and exercise point of view, back to kind of Milo's point, we've all been in positions where we've not been happy with where we are, and it takes somebody with some pride, but also the ability to go, I need some help, to be able to kind of start that process going in a positive way. I mean, for me personally, I had a wake-up call last year, not in a serious way, but I said to Danny Wright, one of our coaches, I want you to take me through the OPEX process from assessment all the way through, so I could see where I am. And obviously, in your head, you think yourself, right, I'm definitely 15% body fat, 100%. I've always been that, you know, and this and that, you know, I'm this aerobically fit, and all these things that you assume you are. We went through the whole process, and I had a couple of big wake-up calls, which meant that I've kind of tweaked my diet a little bit, tweaked my training a little bit, and kind of had a reassessment as to where I was. I'm always going to exercise, I'm always going to train, but I needed that kick up the ass and that information to tell me where I am, to then help me plan for the future, and have that person to talk to, when I needed help. And that process of realization really kind of helped me become more accountable to myself, almost, because you just assume that you're this mega superhuman athlete when clearly you're not.
It's funny because I will say, I think this is one of the benefits of, here's a shameless plug, but I think this is one of the benefits of what we do and what the coaching relationship can be that's so important is, I think back to my times as an athlete, or I think back to my times as, in the military, and, there is a level of responsibility that comes, but it almost comes because, I've had some great coaches in my past. I've been very lucky, and I look at those coaches and the relationship I had with them, and I would do anything not to let them down, because they cared about me, and they cared about my successes, and they coached me in a great way, and that created accountability. Like, I was accountable to the coach because I didn't want to feel like I had let them down. So it's kind of you taking responsibility, but it also comes from a place of accountability to somebody else. And I think that's one thing that, that's great that we can, that we do offer our clients is, we build a relationship where, we're bought in, they're bought in, and that in of itself creates some accountability.
Yeah, huge. I think with our discussions around this before, I think it's that initial couple of weeks where you're building that relationship that is the toughest.
Yeah.
Because you don't know each other that well, and you're trying to kind of feel each other out. And it's our, it's your talent as coaches to try and understand that person, allow them to set realistic goals, and be accountable, and allow them to be accountable to you, and also them that you be accountable to them. In terms of what you provide them in terms of advice, programming, nutritional information, and also having those check-ins. That is the accountability. It's one big kind of circle, and that's what the coach-client relationship should be. It's it's a feedback loop, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And we know from our experiences, especially during this period of time when people are stuck at home, they soon go quiet, don't they? And they kind of switch off, and they don't do their workouts. And we're the ones trying to keep them accountable. It's a very, as you said, it's very subjective to that person, what that accountability actually means. So, I mean, talking about, where we are now, we're almost at the end of our, potentially the end of being locked down to some degree, but obviously not being able to go back to gyms. What kind of techniques and experiences have you guys had with your clients that people might be interested in?
Yeah, so I think for me, there's a few ways that you can go about this for accountabilities. And again, we've spoken about getting a coach, and said it's a lot easier to be consistent when you've got somebody checking up on you. But there's also the option of committing to less. So who when New Year's comes around sets about this unrealistic goal. And I think when I say commit to less, our natural tendency is to kind of over-promise and under-deliver, especially to ourselves. So I think when I spoke about earlier about you need to be consistent to progress. If you set yourself a habit to do for the next 30 days, that you, on a scale of 1 to 10, you might only do that 2 out of 10 times. You're setting yourself up for failure. However, if you set yourself up, say, right, I'm going to go for a walk 3 times a week, and then ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I going to be able to do this every day for the next 30 days? If that's a 9 or a 10 out of 10, you've got yourself about that right difficulty. I think otherwise you're almost setting yourself up for failure. And I think on the converse of that as well, that's about committing to less. There's also committing to more. And I know that sounds a bit strange compared to what I've just said then, but it's about, perhaps setting up a contest with a friend. Ask a friend, right, how about we challenge ourselves? Let's train 3 times a week and see who can do that for the longest period without breaking it. And notice here how it's not about achieving here, it's about doing. And when I say that, like, achieving is losing weight, an outcome. Doing is that consistent action of training 3 times a week on top of each other on the next week and the next week. So in that sense, reward yourself for what you do, not for what you achieve, because it's what you do that is going to help you.
Yeah, it's actions over over statements. It's like, I think, go back to what you said about telling people about your goals. I think that's helpful, but sometimes it can be a little bit less helpful in the fact that you've told someone, but you may not have a plan to actually achieve those goals yet. So I think it's putting that plan in place and having someone you trust to talk to about that, and then kind of expressing, what you want to achieve, whether that is, I don't know, it could be someone going to the Olympics in, I don't know, weightlifting or something, or it could be, right, I really want to, I don't know, be able to do 5K in under 20 minutes on the rower, something a bit more realistic to, to the people that we coach. I think we've had a couple of instances over the last couple of weeks where you guys have talked to clients and they have some very, very lofty goals, and it's kind of trying to breaking those down and saying, and being honest with people as a coach. That's what a coach is there for. It's not being a cheerleader. It's not saying, hey, well done, you've kind of done this twice in the last 10 days. That, to me, that isn't, as you said, Milo, it's being consistent every day and setting yourself up over a really long period of time for success. Because all of these things don't come fast, whether it's fat loss, whether it's getting stronger, whether it's, achieving a sporting goal, or an academic goal or a work goal. They don't come very quickly. And I know that, and we've talked about before, if I've got a very, very basic plan, or even a list of things I need to do written down, that's almost enough to take it out of my brain and make it real. So it could be something along those lines. Yeah, I think what you've kind of touched on before is, I think the system that we've got set up at the gym at OPEX Fitness Bristol and the OPEX kind of model, the first and foremost and the biggest priority is creating that relationship, and then comes the accountability. I think that's just so important. There's so many parts of our lives where we don't ever have that accountability. So I think that's what makes this quite a special system, really, from a fitness point of view, definitely. Yeah, that's me rambling, sorry. Okay, so I mean, little tools and things that you could suggest to help people either become more accountable to themselves or you know, kind of set themselves on a path to achieving what they want to achieve? You know, any things that work for you or for your clients?
I think first thing, I think you guys have both touched on it already. First thing that has to happen is make a plan. You know, decide what that, you know, you can decide on a goal, an achievable, realistic goal. And then, you know, actually, side note, I want to say, you know that saying, you know, what is it? Aim for the moon. If you miss, you hit the stars. Something to that effect. I understand where that logic comes from, but it can be quite demoralizing to set very, very lofty goals without, you know, it's difficult to see your progress in that. So starting small, you know, Milo touched on it, like, you know, have a habit, you know, make a habit once, you know, one habit over the period of weeks, and then add another one. Now I've kind of rambled, but basically start with a small achievable goal, and then create a plan around that goal. That's the first thing. Small goal, make a plan. That's what I would say.
Milo?
Yeah, I'm on similar lines. It's like, you know, you might have this lofty goal, but you need to break that down. You know, for you to be able to do this, you need to, first of all, to get there, there's hundreds and hundreds of stages. And I think it's start where you are and start small. So, you know, if you want to improve your nutrition, don't go and overhaul it all at one point. You know, if you're currently, you know, or, you know, in terms of exercise, if you're currently not training at all, start with one training session. If your nutrition's quite bad, start by increasing your hydration. You know, start something small, or just adding one portion of vegetables to your food. And then once you get really good and really consistent at that, build on it, as opposed to setting yourself a big task of going from 0 to 100 by training 7 times a week, because we don't go from 0 to 100 like that. And usually if we do, we fall off pretty quick. So start small and build from there, because small over time, over 6 months, is something massive. Over 12 months is something even bigger.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think for me, one of the key things is, if you're unsure as to how to plan and how to create that consistency, just get yourself a coach. I know that sounds like, you know, we're trying to sell our wares, but I think we've all seen benefits of actually having a coach. Yeah, and that can come in any guise, really. I mean, for my, you know, I've got coaches to help me with my Olympic lifting, to go to particular competitions, and I recognised that was key for me to try to achieve what I want to achieve. Trying to find that person who you respect, that you don't want to let down, but also is an expert in their field. Because that, again, you know, and also, again, this is going to sound a little bit off topic, but there's got to be some kind of transaction, and a financial transaction, which also helps accountability as well. You know, personal trainers are really good at giving stuff away for free, and then they wonder why people don't do what they ask them to do. It's because they've got no kind of buy-in. And that is a literal buy-in, okay? And I've made that mistake loads of times. I'll do that for free for you for a week, and then blah, 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 and then it kind of all drops off, because, you know, there hasn't been that transaction. And, you know, I've paid for coaches to coach me because I know that I need a coach, you know? I know that I still need to learn. I know that I don't know everything about everything. So, you know, I want to get a professional to help me out with that. And so I think if you're unsure about your direction and your plan, find someone who's an expert in that field, and whether that's business, whether that's lifestyle, whether that's nutrition or exercise, family even, you know, find somebody who's an expert in that field, and get their advice and help them plan. I mean, some of the best advice I've had, I've had business coaching and weightlifting coaching by people that I really, really, really respect, and that is key. And I'm happy to pay them money because I know I'm going to get those couple of nuggets that are really, really going to help me. So I think we'll leave it there, guys. I reckon. Any final thoughts?
No, I think we covered it. I think we did it.
Okay, so just very quickly, consistency. Try and, you know, those bite-sized chunks of habits and to create change over a long period of time. As you said, skin in the game, Andy, and find yourself a coach that you trust, that's an expert in that field, that will keep you accountable. All right, thanks guys, that's been good. I'm sure this is a much bigger conversation, but I think we've kind of scratched the surface there, and I hope you guys out there have enjoyed this and hopefully taken away a few nuggets of information that you can use today or tomorrow or whenever. All right, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers, Paul.
Thanks, guys.